In this project, we're going to create a mini magazine. This is a more involved project, so this video is video 1 of 2 that I'm going to record to work through the project. The goal of this project is to take an existing magazine cover, well, an entire existing magazine. In this video, we're only going to do the cover. So here we are looking for an existing magazine cover, for example this Vogue cover, and we're going to try and recreate it as close as we can given the font selections and things and other technical limitations that we have on our systems to create something that looks as close as technically possible to the original. The image, we're going to replace the image with an image that comes from Getty Images, and then we're going to recreate all of the font elements on the front page from scratch in InDesign and try to get the formatting, the colors, the font faces, the sizing, and just the general look and feel as close as possible to the original. So on the left is the original with Natalie Portman, on the right is my fake cover with Melanie Portman, since it's not really Natalie, so I called her Melanie. Let's take a look at Getty Images real quick to find an image that is suitable. The image that I found, in case you want to work along with me with the exact same image, I spent more time than I care to admit finding this image on Getty. The image number is 2003-25245-001. If you type that number into the search screen, it will come right up. Of course, we have to log in to download the full-size image. You need to use the AIMD student and then log in with the password that we have. And after you do that, you can download the image that we're going to work with. We definitely want to download the highest quality image that is available on Getty, and this should be the default. If that is not happening by default, you need to make sure that you are downloading the largest file size available, since this image is going on the cover and we need to get just the best quality that is available. So I'm going to cancel this because I already downloaded the file. And the next thing we need to do is find a magazine cover that you want to work on. I'm switching to just a normal browser window with a Google search, and if you type in magazine cover into the Google search box, you will and select images. So if I just run the search by itself, it will show us normally you see everything. If you switch to images, you will get a good selection of magazine covers that are available online. The magazine publishers are very eager to make these available online, it seems. So I'm looking for images. I switched to large actually because I want a good quality scan of the cover page so I can really analyze it in detail. And what we're looking for here is a magazine where the person that is on the cover partially covers the title of the magazine. And there should be a fair number of interesting font elements going on the front page as well. So Glamour is a candidate, both in style and also Lucky, and another one that I've come across that uses a lot of fairly easy to do font things is Nylon as well. So I am using a Vogue magazine cover from 2011, and it's actually the January. So I'm expanding my search to find that particular cover quickly, and it is Natalie Portman on the cover here. So I bring it up in this view. There's a larger version available. I click on this view larger, and here I get the cover in very nice detail. So this is the image that I want to use in InDesign to duplicate, and I'm going to get started and switch over to InDesign to get my document set up. I'll come back here to copy this image actually into my InDesign in a little bit. Yes, I'm switching over back to InDesign, and I'm going to abandon this particular project, and I'm going to start from scratch here by going to File, New, and I want to create a new document. Since I want to create a 4-page magazine, later on I'm going to accept the defaults here, all of them except for the number of pages. I want to have a 4-page document that in this video I'm only going to create the cover page, and in the subsequent video I'm going to create the interior magazine pages and the full page ad that goes onto the back cover. So we want 4 pages, we want them to be facing, and we want them to be letter size. So most of the defaults here should be fine if you have a freshly rebooted computer at school, and at home you want to make sure that you have these settings here. And we're creating a new file. In InDesign we can zoom out by pressing Command minus, or on the PC Control minus. So on the Mac it is Command minus, on the PC it's Control minus to zoom in and out. This is our layout of the 4 pages. Up here is our cover. Down here these 2 facing pages are going to be our inside spread, and at the bottom the single page here will be our back cover. We are only going to work on our cover page today, so I'm going to zoom in so that I can see just that. You can zoom in and out up here as well if you want to dial in a specific preset magnification. For my video recording setup, a 70% magnification shows the image or the page just very nicely here. With a blank page we see the black outline, which is the physical edge of the paper, and we have to be careful or pay attention to that, since in magazine work many of the images will actually go right to the very edge of the paper. And so when we place images and when we build a page, we have to make sure that images that should go to the very edge of the physical paper when it gets printed and later cut off just a little bit, that we place images and that they actually touch the black frame here. The interior purple frame here is a margin, and it is, well, a suggestion. It is no hard and fast rule here where this is positioned. It's just in the default position for a certain margin all around the paper. But this is our blank canvas, if you will, or our blank front page that we're going to create our cover on. So I want to get my original file in here as well so that I can compare side by side and just kind of zoom in and analyze the original cover quickly. So I'm going to switch back to my browser where I have the full-size image in the browser, and I'm using Google Chrome, and I hope this works here too. I know it works on Firefox. If I right-click and copy the image here, I can now switch back to InDesign and right-click and paste the image. And it comes in quite large. I'm going to zoom out a little bit by pressing Command minus again. And I hold down my Shift key and my Command key on the Mac. On a PC you would have to hold down the Control key and the Shift key and drag a corner. That allows us to size the image just so. I want to just get it close to the size of the page, so I'm holding down the Command and Shift and drag a corner. You got to be very careful not to distort it here. So what I want to do is make this image, or make this cover page the same size as my magazine page that I have available. We are creating pages on exact letter size. Depending on which magazine you choose, the aspect ratio of the magazine might be slightly differently. This is not far off, so I'm going to drag it over my page, and again hold down my Command and Shift key on the Mac and Control Shift on the PC to size it so that it's just as wide. I want it to fill my cover, my page size, and there's a little bit of overlap at the bottom that you can see if I zoom in a little bit. The page is the original is a little taller than my letter size page, but it's okay, we can just shift things up a little bit to make it look reasonable. If I don't hold any keys down, I can adjust the frame that surrounds the image, and when I adjust the frame, I'm not holding any keys down right now, I can adjust the cropping area of, or just the frame itself, and only the image that is really inside the frame will be visible. Now, when I zoom in a little bit, you can see that this picture here looks quite pixelated, even though the original, if I switch back to my browser, was very detailed. That is because InDesign by default has a setting that wants to show high resolution images at a rather low resolution. So I can change that by going to View and go to Display Performance and switch it to High Quality Display. And hopefully we'll be able to see this in this recording as well, that now I have very nice high quality image available for the original here. So I'm going to zoom back out to the level that I want. 70% is right for me. And I don't want to actually keep the image here. I want to keep it to the side. So with my black arrow tool, I'm clicking on the image, but I'm not clicking right in the very center. I want to click inside the frame, but not right in the center. If I click and drag straight across, I'm going to hold my Shift key while I drag to make sure it really does not accidentally get moved horizontally or vertically. I can move the image across. What a lot of people get messed up with initially when they start working with frames and images, when they want to move an image, they click in the very center, and what happens when you do that, you're really grabbing the image and not the frame itself. So when you move the image, the frame stays in place, and what you get is the image moving within the frame and the frame limiting the area that gets displayed. So this is often not what you want. It's actually a feature in InDesign, but if you don't want that, or if you accidentally do that, I'm going to press Command Z as in zebra to get back. So with the black arrow, click outside, click just inside the frame, but not in the very center. See, when it changes to the hand, that's when you get the different mode of this tool. Out here, I can move both the frame and the image into place. One thing I want to do here also is to set a few guides with the original image in place. You can create guidelines that allow you to align things nicely in InDesign. I have my ruler active. If I click inside the ruler and I drag down, I can make these guidelines appear. For example, I want one to align with the bottom of my Vogue title. I'm going to put one at the top as well to later on so that I can tell how tall my title is supposed to be. And I'm going to drag a guideline in from the left to make it line up with the left side of my text elements here, and another one with the right side of my text elements here that are on the page. And also these things are aligned with the title itself as well. If you need to remove a guideline later on, they're just temporary, or they can be temporary. You can remove them again by moving your mouse pointer directly over it, and you see the little dot appearing next to it and highlighting the guideline. You can click and drag it off to the ruler again, and that makes it disappear. So you can create them by clicking inside the ruler and dragging down, and you can remove them again by clicking directly on them and moving them off to the ruler again, which makes them disappear. So I'm going to move my image over to the left here. This is my and I'm holding down the Shift key so that it doesn't get moved horizontally or vertically. So now I have my blank canvas, and I want to actually start with my little Vogue text here. Now the tricky part, or the challenge here, is to find fonts that are very similar to the original font, and that is not an easy task to do in InDesign directly. Actually, if I just type in, we use the text tool to click and drag out an area that I can put text inside, and in this case I want it to be just as wide, touching my guides. For example, if I start typing Vogue by itself, it just makes it very small to begin with. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on here. So, and it uses the default font. If I click and drag to highlight the font, I can change it by choosing a different size here to show me better what the font will look like. But I pretty much have to highlight the font and then pick a font from the drop-down selection to find a font that matches very closely my original. And this is just very hard to do with this selection of fonts, because it's very hard to see what my word will actually look like in the font that I need, or which font will give me the closest look possible. So you can do it by trial and error here, but there is a tool available both for the Mac and a Windows PC that makes this a lot easier. On the Mac, what I found is a application called Font Dock, and I'm dragging this into place. This is a very nice font previewing application that you can download for free. And the way it works, you can type in the text that you want to preview. In this case, I've already typed in Vogue, but you can type in anything you want. Later on, we'll use the word fashion, for example, in all uppercase letters to preview that word. I hit the Enter key, and it shows me that word in all of the fonts that I have installed of my system. Right now, I have it limited to only the Classic collection, but if I click on all fonts, for example, it takes a moment to generate this, but it looks at all of the fonts in your system and shows you the word or the text that you have typed in all of the fonts that are available. So I switch back to Vogue and hit Enter, and now you still have to scroll through the list, but it's much easier to see which fonts are good candidates. And on the Mac, most Macs and the Macintosh computers on the school, they have a font called DDOT, D-I-D-O-T, which on a Macintosh is really the closest match that we have to match the original of our Vogue. I should move it over here and zoom out a little bit on the original so that you can see what the original looks like. And I bring up my font dock again. So the very thick V on one side, very thin on the other side, and also the U has a very thick side and a very thin line on the other, and they have very distinct, very flat, very horizontal, very thin serifs. So DDOT is the best choice on the Macintosh for this particular font, but if you're working on a different magazine, you may need a totally different font. But this tool here allows you to find a font quickly on a Macintosh. So it's called Font Dock, and it is available for download for free from a website called cnet.com or also download.com. You can just type in the word Font Dock for Mac and download this application. This application is nice on the Mac because you can just save the .app file to your USB drive, for example, and plug it into any Macintosh computer and run the application directly from your USB drive. You do not have to install anything, which is locked down on the school's computer. So the Font Dock application for the Mac, you can just copy the file, download it, and save the file to your USB drive, and you can carry it with you and run this application on any Macintosh computer at school or elsewhere. On the Windows side, there's a similar application called Nexus Font that you can also download from the same website, download.cnet.com or simply download.com. And Nexus Font is the Windows equivalent or very similar applications on the Windows platform. Let me pull it up real quick, just a moment here. So I've loaded a Windows emulator on my Macintosh computer so that I can show you what the Nexus Font application looks like on a Windows computer. This is compatible with XP and also with Vista and the latest, I think, Windows 7 applications as well. It's the same concept. You can type in a word and you can choose the size of the font, and whatever you type in, it will show you that word in all of the fonts that are available on your system automatically. So that's a very nice tool to have available for this type of project anyways, and oftentimes people or students struggle with matching fonts to the originals. On the Windows system there is no DDOT font. The closest one that you can work with on a Windows machine might be the Bodoni font, which has a very similar look to DDOT on the Macintosh computer. So Bodoni is the font that I would recommend to try and get this look of the Vogue title on a Windows computer. So I'm going to switch back to my Macintosh system, just a moment. And here we are back on my Macintosh system. And now that I know that on the Macintosh I can use DDOT, I press D to just quickly jump to that selection. Now this font list extends below the window that records. So let me just scroll up here. I have a lot of fonts installed on my system. And DDOT is what I want, regular actually, and that gives me the Vogue in the right font face. I can click the text or the font size. I can either do a pre-selection from existing one, but I need it bigger than the biggest one that's available here, so I can either type in a number directly, 120 for example, and hit enter, shows it to me in that size, and then I can click up until I get close to where I want to be. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can see better what's going on. I want this to be as tall as between my guidelines and to just fill up the space that I have available. So, ooh, now the whole thing disappeared. The thing is, if you have text that is bigger than the text frame that I have set up for this text element here, I can show you this by switching back to my black arrow tool. The blue frame is the size of my text frame that will hold everything. I can increase the size by dragging the corners, and this will just change the size of the enclosing frame. I can click on the inside to move my text element around. I can also size my frame, my font directly with this enclosing frame. So if I switch to my black arrow tool, I can hold down my Command key on the Mac or Control on the PC and the Shift key, and I click on the corner. I can size my font so that it is proportionally sized. We may actually, so I can size it visually so it fills, oops, it accidentally moved here. I actually need to slightly distort it because my font is really taller. So I need to make it taller, and I can do that by holding down the Command key and clicking here, and it will stretch the font up. Actually, I can do this in both directions so that I can have the font be exactly as tall as I need it to be. But it's still not quite right because my font spacing, my letters are spaced much farther apart than the original. You can see that the U and the E is very close together. The top of the serifs are actually touching and connecting here. So very close. My lettering is much farther apart. So let me adjust that. I'm going to double click inside my text tool here and select everything. There's a tracking adjustment that I can use to change the spacing between my letters. And can you see how this moves closer together? So I can change the spacing of my lettering. And then I can, well, stretch the whole thing out again a little bit by holding down the Command key and making the whole thing stretch to its original width that I wanted. And now my text looks very close to the original, with the V and the O is actually even tighter on the original than what I have. So let's tighten this up just a little bit more by dialing down the size a little bit. I don't want the G and the O to really touch. And sometimes you want to also do this just to an individual letter pair, for example, to have, for example, the V, select it, and then dial down the tracking. That moves the O closer to the V. So you can change the tracking between individual letters. You highlight the letter, and by changing the tracking, you can change how close the next letter will be to the current one. So switching back to the arrow tool, I can size it down a little bit. Oops. And holding down the Command key, I can stretch it out a little again, so that my E touches my right edge of my guide, and I'm also, well, the bottom is already aligned to my guideline. So now my word Vogue fills the entire space that I want it to fill, to very closely match the original outline or the original title of the magazine. What is not right yet is the color of the font. So double click inside again, click and drag to highlight everything. The font color is adjusted up here in this fill property, but I can actually directly sample a color. I could either go here, double clicking to bring up a font or a color dialog for the font. I could switch down here to the color and try and guess what the right color is. But the best way to do it actually is to use the color or the eyedropper tool, select it, and then simply sample the color from the original. And what it actually did is, since I had the text stroke selected, it changed the color only on the text stroke. I need to switch over here on the color palette to the fill color, and again use my eyedropper tool to sample the color from the original. And it's a little hard to preview because it inverts the color, but now when I have this in place here, you can see that it matches very closely the original. Now my font is still a little bit flawed in that the lines here on mine are quite a bit thicker than the original. They're like super thin, but this is just one of the limitations that we have for our font selections that we have available, that unless you have the exact same font that the publishing house used, you will get close, but it will not be perfect. But this is quite close to the original, so I'm happy with this here. And I want to move on to adding the image to my cover page so that I can get my image placed here. And the trick that I want, or the technique that I want to reach here or arrive at, is to have the cover look like this here, where the entire image fills the page and the person that's in the image appears to be in front of the text or in front of the title of this image. So I have to do a little bit of preparation work with my image that I downloaded from Getty. So I'm going to switch over to Photoshop to do that image preparation so that I can easily use it to work really well on this cover page. So I'm switching over to Photoshop and load my image in there. So I switched over to Photoshop here, and I'm going to open up the image that I downloaded from Getty Images. So I'm going to navigate to my folder where I kept the resources for this project here. And I think it's here, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's actually down here. Magazine, this is my... No, this is my original image here. So I'm loading this into Photoshop. This is the image that I downloaded directly from Getty. And here's my image. What I want to do to make it work well on my cover page, I want to first crop it to exactly the size that I need it to fill my entire front page. Since my front page is 8.5 inches by 11 inches, I can use the crop tool and I just dial in my 8.5 IN for inches. That didn't work. Let me do this again. 8.5 IN for inches, and the height should be 11 IN for inches. And I'm not going to change the resolution really, because I just want every pixel that is there, I just want this image cropped so that it is cropped almost exactly the way it is going to be on the cover. And I believe it comes down to right about here. Let me double check that by switching back to Dreamweaver or to InDesign real quick. And looking at the one that I did before, yeah, it comes down just to about just below the rail. So this is about the right, and the head, the top of the head is cut off ever so slightly. So this is my cropping selection. So this is important that you get this right. So you should really compare your original to this crop here, and I can probably turn off the application frame perhaps to view this better. So if I crop this, now you can compare here. I see InDesign in the background, so this is my original. The top of the head should be slightly cropped, and I want to just have this person be positioned roughly in the same area as the original and to get the same effect for the cropping. So I'm turning on my application frame again on Photoshop, so I see just this element, because what I want to do, I want to create two versions of this image here. I want to create one version of the image that is full frame, full size, showing everything, and then I want to create a second version that has just the person cut out without any of the background in it. So I'm going to duplicate my background by dragging it over the sticky pad node icon to just duplicate it. This will become my cutout layer where I create the cutout. We've done this before in the hair and makeup piece, so I'm just going to do it quickly here using the quick selection tool to get started. And I probably have to fine-tune this a little bit, obviously, because it selects everything. Holding down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on a PC to back it up a little bit. I'm going to fine-tune this. I paused the recording momentarily to do the fine-tuning here. What I did was just fine-tune it by adding and holding down the Option or the Alt key on the PC to get this fairly close. What I want to do, though, for sure, is to get the hair detail right, and we did that in our hair and makeup element or project. And so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to use Refine Edge, and I'm going to tell Photoshop with my tool here by painting with the default tool over the areas where I have hair transitioning to background, so that I will let Photoshop do the work for me. When I let go, it will create a more detailed cutout, and it will generally do a very nice job. It depends a little bit on the image and how clean your background is, but you can use this to get a very nice detailed hair cutout against the background here. Just one more touch up here. Alright, the main area I'm concerned with is sort of the top of the head, to get a good hair cutout at the top, because that's where it overlaps the text. So click OK. It gives me this selection. I have my cutout layer selected. If I create a layer mask, it will give me the image against the transparent background. I still see everything because my background is visible. If I turn this off, you can see that my cutout layer is against transparent, and if I turn on my background, I have the full image here. So I want to save two versions with this crop here, so I go to File, Save As, and this is my image, and I call this full crop, and I save this in the same directory. So this is full crop, and I'm saving it just as an original Photoshop PSD file. Then I turn off my background, and I save it again. File, Save As, and this will be my full crop cutout version. So I have two versions, one with the full image and one with the cutout image. Both are PSD Photoshop files. Now that I have this preparation work done, it will be very easy in InDesign to use this image and create my cover. So this is my current and I'm going to insert the image that I just saved, and I have to do this by going to File, Place, and I navigate to the file that I just saved. The first one was the full crop, and I'm opening this file up, and it comes up looking like this here, with the little pointer and the cursor with a little thumbnail image. I want to click and drag out an area to tell it which frame I want this image to occupy. I click at the very top corner and I drag down to the bottom right corner, and if I cropped it properly, it should perfectly match the dimensions of my paper, and it will put the image in size here, perfectly sized, not distorted, because I did the cropping exactly to the dimensions of my paper here in InDesign. Of course, it's covering up my text now, and that is because it's in front of everything. I need to change the arrangement, so I make sure it's selected. With my black arrow tool, I can go to Object, Arrange, and I can send this image all the way to the back, so it's behind everything. And next, I'm going to load in my cutout image by going to File, Place, and now I'm selecting my cutout image here. Ooh, but if I do this directly, well, let me just do it and tell you what happens, because most people do exactly this. It replaces my image with the one that I just loaded, and that's not what I want. So I press Command Z, and it will undo this loading, but it still will let me place this new transparent image in just the right place here. And now I messed this up a little bit. Let me do this again. I'm going to click outside so that this is not selected. In fact, I'm going to lock this image down so I cannot accidentally select it anymore. If I right click on it, there is a choice that is kind of off the screen. I should be able to lock it here. So you can lock it from the right click menu or press Command L or Control L on the PC. Locks the image down, so when I click here, I can no longer accidentally select it. Now when I load my image in by going to File, Place, I select again my cutout version, click on Open, and now I can again do the same thing, click in the top left corner and drag out the frame to the very bottom right corner, and it will want to snap to it. And watch it how this cutout version appears on top of the text, and this with just 2 image placements will create this effect of having the person cover up part of the text while the rest of the background of the image is behind the title of my magazine. So if you do the cropping right, it will just snap into place and you don't have to do anything else. Lock down this image as well. Right click to lock it because we don't want to accidentally move it from now on. Before I get started on the detailed text elements, I actually want to fix my title here. I'm not quite happy with it, and my original had a better version of it with the thinner lines, and I just realized why that is different. And the problem that I ran into is that I sized it using this mode of just dragging the corner of the enclosing frame to size the font. It sizes everything, including the line thickness, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to recreate this very quickly. I'm going to drag out with my text box a frame that is slightly larger than what I need it to be. Type in the word Vogue. Select everything by pressing Command A, dialing in my DDOT regular font. Where is it at? And it is DDOT regular. And the font size needs to be somewhere in the 160 range, I believe. Or much smaller than that. So 150 about. But I need things to be tighter together, so I'm tightening up my letter spacing to make things much tighter. And then I'm not going to worry about the G actually touching, because it's all going to be behind her head. And then I size up my font again. And when I make my font very close to the target size by using these actual font adjustments, I am not accidentally increasing the line thickness like I did before. And I also need to change the color of it to the red again. So this is my changed version, and I'm not sure that you can see that, but the vertical or the horizontal lines are much thinner than they are in the one that I did previously. So this is what I want to use. I may have to adjust the height just slightly. I'm going to overlay it. Well, actually I'm going to delete the old one since I definitely do not want to use it. I'm going to overlay this on top of here, make it snap to my guidelines. I can use the arrow keys to fine-tune the placement. And I want to just do a very subtle adjustment of the height by holding down the Command key and dragging it down so that it's exactly the height that I need it to be here. So this is good. It's just in front of the face now, and it needs to be in back, although it looks almost cool with the eyes and the nose right here. But it needs to be behind the head, and I can make it move, take a step back by right-clicking, going to Arrange, and sending it backward, meaning it takes one step back. And now it is behind my cutout version, but still in front of my background image. So this is where I'm going to leave it for this video. Actually, they're getting too long. Sorry about that. I'm going to break this video up into 2 pieces. So this is the end of part 1 of my cover. In the second video, I'm going to add all of the detail text elements here, and that actually does not take all that long. It will not take 45 minutes because once we figure out one of them, the rest are fairly easy to do. So I'm going to end this video. In the next video we are going to pick up at this point and add all of the detailed text elements here that finish up the cover page here. But this is all for right now, so see you in the next video.